Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Thank you for coming back for another episode. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about what next. I'm hoping with the wonderful weather we've been experiencing in Calgary and its environs, you have moved your plants from indoors outdoors. So now that they're outdoors, you've transplanted them. Now, what next? So this episode, I'll be taking you through tips and tricks to ensure that your plants survive and thrive in the great outdoors. I know some people have reached out asking, if I missed phase one, but I'm interested in doing phase two. What do I need to do? Just follow along. If you need any seedlings or any plants, I actually have quite a bit extra. So reach out to me. I'll see how I can hook you up. And as always, thank you so much for those of you who have liked, subscribed, shared, reached out, shared videos, shared photos. I'm super duper stoked and excited by the progress I'm seeing our planting community making. I am really, really inspired. Thank you so much. So today's episode that I discussed, we're just going to be talking about the tips and tricks as you move your plants outdoors, things to look out for, what to do when that happens, just to ensure that we set ourselves up for a bountiful harvest.
So let's discuss 12 of the most common issues that could happen once you move your plants outdoors. So the first thing we'll talk about is transplant shock. And transplant shock is just when you move your plants from indoors outdoors and then they react to the new environment. And the standard signs are wilting, yellowing, or drooping leaves. And do not fear, this is something that is very reasonably normal, especially with tomatoes. Tomatoes are drama queens. So what you can do if this happens is just keep the soil consistently moist, provide shade for a few days, and don't fertilize until after it has recovered. And you will notice with tomatoes, you'll be surprised that in a day or two, they'll actually perk up and end up looking healthy and happy after the fact. Next thing that could happen is sunburn or scorched leaf, and you will notice this by once your leaves become very pale and bleached, crispy leaves or patched leaves. And what happens with this one is more like your sun has burnt your leaves. The tip to do this is move your sun to partial shade during peak sun and then gradually increase them to full sun exposure. Another thing I've noticed here is if you water your plants and you water from top up, whereby water touches the leaves and then it's still wet when the sun comes out, it also tends to burn your leaves a little bit more. So just make sure you're watering bottom down. I'll talk about that later, but also provide a little bit of shade if you find out that your leaves are getting pale, bleached, or crispy. And don't worry, after a while the leaves will perk up or you get newer leaves that will be green. Next is overwatering. I know when you tend to move your plants outdoors and you have a bit more space, you think that automatically means more water to the plants. At least I did. And if you end up overwatering your plants, you will notice that your leaves start getting yellow, your soil will be extremely wet, and sometimes you may get some like a foul odor from the soil, and you may notice like there's some fungal growth around the soil. But the major thing here, you see your leaves start to yellow. If you see that happening, just pause watering, let the soil dry out, and after the soil dries out, reduce the amount of water you pour on the plants. You can develop a watering schedule. Let's say, okay, fine, every morning I water my plants and then give it like 4 or 5 sprays, or just like a little like a plan or a plan of how you're going to water your plants to make sure you don't give them too much water. On the other side of the coin is underwatering. And same thing, you think you moved outdoors, your plants may not need as much water. So just look out for the leaves. If you're underwatering, your plants will tell you. You'll find out that the leaves start to curl in. You'll find out that your stems tend to get a little bit brittle, and then you just see stunted growth and dry leaves, so you can actually see it. And when it happens, what you should do is possibly water while the temperature is cool, and water the roots, not the leaves. Another thing that could happen is wind damage, and this will typically happen when you have high winds that are coming onto your plants. And signs are broken stems, leaning plants, torn leaves. And the way to mitigate against this is, where possible, use plant support, so support your plants. And then if you find out there's going to be like rapid winds in the weather, what you can do is to provide like a windbreak. I have a tarp I usually use to cover my plants on days that it's going to be quite windy. handy, or I group them together, and I put my plants in pots. So I just group them together and put them on the floor, not on the patio. So there's a little bit of something that provides a bit of windbreak, and that way the plants are not necessarily affected by winds. But I think the easiest way to deal with this is just put plant support for your plants, and then if the wind comes with a bit of hail, then get like a blanket or a tarp and cover your plants so that they don't get damaged. Another thing that could happen once you move your plant outdoors is pest attacks, i.e. aphids or flea beetles or something eating your plants. And the signs for this is when you have the holes in your leaves. You have your leaves that also curled, not curled inwards the way it is for the water retention, but just curl like a curly leaf there. And then sometimes you see things are sticky, and then sometimes you may actually see the whole seedling missing, i.e. they've eaten a complete leaf. So what you can do if you find this happening, just check your leaves and check under your leaves regularly, because you will see sometimes there might be some pests that are actually there, or you might see some insects on it. So you can actually pick it up itself, or you can use neem oil and or other health remedies to discuss to deal with your pest attacks. But my next 2 episodes I'll be talking about what to do. At this point in time, there's a high likelihood you will not find pests on your plants just quite yet, but just something to look out for. Anything you may find for now can be things that will just pick it off, and then in the next episode I'll discuss what to do if you have a pest attack, i.e. your plants are invaded by pests. Also, when you move your plants outdoors, you might notice that now they're in a bigger space, they need some more nutrients, so nutrient deficiency. You can refer back to the previous episodes on fertilizers to identify what nutrients are missing from your plants by vision and what you can actually do to recommend to rectify it. But bottom line, if you notice pale leaves, stunted growth, yellow veins, you add compost, organic fertilizer to the plants. So check back on episode 5 or 6 regarding fertilizers. That will give you a deep dive into what to do if you find out your plants are now deficient on nutrients. And also remember, during the indoor seedling phase, we talked about reducing your fertilizer strength to half strength. Now that they're outdoors, you can actually use the full strength per the instructions on the fertilizer you're using. Another common issue is lack of structural support. When we were I was showing you the last video on how to transplant, I mentioned putting your support now that you're transplanting your leaves, or when you transplant your leaves, because it's easier to get the support as your plants are growing. As the plants grow longer, if you do not put support, it might be a little bit late, or you might lose a couple of leaves or fruits when it comes to putting the supports. And even though your plants are small now, you might say, okay, fine, I don't need support, but it's always good to have support for your plants, especially if you're growing indeterminate tomatoes. So as they grow, you may notice that your plants start to fall over, they start to bend, you have leaves touching the ground or fruits touching the ground. That's just a sign of lack of support, and I'll recommend that you put a cage or stake your plants, and do it early, so at least your plants have the required support that they need to grow properly. Next is weeds. Now, I fell victim to this my first year of planting. Anything you did not plant is a weed, no matter what it looks like. So you just notice that things you did not plant are showing up around your plant, and they end up stealing nutrients from your plant and also stealing a bit of space. Anything you did not plant that you see beside your plant, uproot it ASAP before it grows. And then what you can do if you notice that you have a number of weeds coming in, I recommend you remove, uproot the weed, and then mulch. We talked about mulching in our previous episodes. Mulch around the plants. It will also help with weed prevention and also moisture retention. Next, what I'm going to talk about is temperature swings. I mentioned before, tomatoes are drama queens, so they react to temperatures. They're quite sensitive. And you might notice, like a day after a cold night, your leaves are drooping, or you find stress on your leaves a day after there's been a heat spike. So just look out for your leaves. And then what you can do to prevent this, on nights that it's going to get quite cold, you can get a tarp or blanket and cover your plants. Same thing, if it's going to be a little bit hot, you can actually get like transparent nylon bag or something, so transparent cloth or just a cloth to cover it, to shield it, to prevent it from the elements. Think of it like children. When your kids are it's going to be cold, you don't send them out without a sweater. When it's extremely hot, you tell them to wear a face cap or sunscreen. That's really how it is in terms of protecting your plants against extreme temperature swings. Okay, next let's talk about air circulation. Remember when we're showing you the idea of planting is also cut down the bottom leaves, and the idea is you should have enough air circulation to circulate through your plants. So if you need to cut some of the leaves to ensure there's air circulation, that should be done. I will talk about pruning in a future episode, but the idea is don't put your plants too close to each other. There should be enough air to pass through your leaves when they are growing. So if you notice that your plant leaves are too close together, give it some time. Then you need to transplant or move it, or you may just need to reduce the number of leaves you have on each of your plants. And last we're going to talk about is slow or no growth. Now that you've moved your plant outdoors, in a couple of days or like a week, you should notice there's some growth on your plants. If you find out that your plants are still the same size they were when you transplanted, or there's been very little or no significant change to the plant, then I'll recommend you check the root health, adjust the watering, check the sun exposure, just check it to see if it is, and then you may need to fertilize as well. If you do not put compost or do not put like bone meal when you're transplanting, this might be a good time to actually put a bit of fertilizer to make sure that your plants grow. So thank you so much for joining from this episode, and if you find out that there's something that happens to your plants that was not listed amongst the 12 common issues, please reach out to me so we can actually possibly give you a solution we can troubleshoot together. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. See you next time. Bye bye.